tell you guys about the time that my entire class teamed up to take my teacher down. And by down, I mean fired, which is terrible, but... And to be clear, I wasn't involved in the incident. I was just asked in to be a witness along with the rest of the class. If you're not interested at this point, like, I don't even know. So when I was in 6th grade, I had this teacher called Mr. W. We're gonna call him Mr. W. He was our science teacher. And he was fine. He wasn't like amazing or bad. He was just okay. He did smell like really, really bad. But again, that didn't affect his teaching at all. One day, however, I don't even know how this happened. He asked us all to get started on our work. He was a little irritated that day. I don't even remember why. One of the girls in our class, her name was Summer. She didn't have her workbook. Mr. W asked her where her work was. I didn't bring it today. They started arguing. The rest of the class was kind of silent, just watching this. She's a nice girl. She wasn't attacking him or anything. He did, however, get very angry. So angry, in fact, that he grabbed his binder and threw it across the room over her head. It just barely skipped her head and slammed on the floor. This wasn't like an empty binder from the dollar store. It was a teacher binder full of work. We were all silent. Summer stopped talking. Look for part 2 to find out what happens. Okay, this is part 2 of my teacher almost getting fired. After that whole incident, my class was dead silent for the rest of the period. We then all went to lunch. None of us really talked about it, but then all of a sudden a woman came up to us. We were all kind of sitting around the same table. This woman, I guess she was administration. I have no idea who she was. I think what had happened was a bunch of students had reported him. She asked us all from Mr. W's class to follow her. I don't remember if this was the same day or the following day, but she asked us to follow her into an empty classroom. I think it was used for testing. She had us all sit around the table and recount the incident to the best of our ability. Summer was there. What she wanted to know was basically, did Mr. W throw that binder at Summer? And we all recounted it basically the same, but at the end of the day, we all said yes. But eventually they let us all go. The following day, Mr. W was really sad. Barely spoke to us, barely did anything. He was passing out some work. He looked at Summer and said, "Summer, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to throw that binder at you." His voice sounded like he was about to break. But we did have him as our teacher for the rest of the year, so no, he wasn't actually fired. But I do think Summer was terrified to speak up for the rest of that year. And the rest of us kind of didn't want to be in that class anymore. Yeah.
The time I almost got killed by my mailman. When I was in middle school, I was staying home from school because I wasn't feeling well. And my mom had to go to work that day, so I was all alone at home. I remember laying in my bed because my head was hurting really bad, but I was startled by the doorbell ringing. So I ended up going downstairs to check who was at the door. I looked out the peephole and saw the mailman delivering a package. So I opened the door and my mailman told me to sign for a package. So as I was signing for the package, he then asked me, "Aren't you supposed to be at school?" And I told him that I wasn't feeling well and that my mom let me stay home. And then he asked me where was my mom. And like an idiot, I told him she was at work. You guys, never tell anyone you're at home alone. But at this time, I was young and I always had a friendly relationship with my mailman. So at the time, I didn't think anything of it. So I ended up taking the package in the house, locking the door, and going back upstairs to get in my bed. But you wouldn't believe what happened next. Stay tuned. Part 2. So as I was heading upstairs to get back in my bed, I heard the front doorknob turn, as if someone was trying to open the door. This really confused me, so I ended up stopping on the stairs just to listen again, just to make sure I wasn't hearing anything. But I didn't hear anything else, so I continued to my bed. But when I got in the bed, I heard knocking on the door. So I was kind of upset, like, who is bothering me? I just wanted to get some rest. So I went back downstairs to the front door to look out the window, but there was no one at the door. Then I heard the knocking again, and that's when I realized it was coming from the back door. Now I was really creeped out because no one should be in my backyard. So I ended up looking out the back door window, and I could see the mailman in my backyard. I was so shocked. He saw me looking out the window and came to the window. And immediately I asked, "What are you doing in my backyard?" And he was like, "Open the door, I need your signature again." Then I realized in that moment that my mailman was trying to trick me into opening the door. So I said, "Just one moment, let me get my dad to sign for the package. He's upstairs." And I quickly ran upstairs to call the police. But the mailman had left before the police could arrive.
Hey guys, here's a pretty scary story from when I was little. I was 5 years old and my mom and I went to the mall because it was holiday season and we wanted to be a little festive. We went into this one store, and as soon as we came out, there was no one outside the mall. And you know how usually malls are super busy and packed, especially around Christmas time? No, there was no one there. All of a sudden, we hear this lady screaming, "Get out of here, you're not allowed to be here, go, go." And obviously we're like, what's going on? You know, like, why are we not allowed to be here? The lady was like, "I can't say, just go." And obviously my mom and I were like, what do we do? Like, where are we gonna go? So we found this cafe, and there were a bunch of people stacked inside, so we thought, let's go try to hide in there. The guy was like, "If you come in, you're not allowed to come out." My mom and I were like, okay, let's just do it. That's the best option we have. When we were inside the cafe, some people told us that there was an active shooter on the loose or something. There were a bunch of police cars, but we finally got out of there, and it was pretty scary.
Story time! So on New Year's, my friend and I went to a house party, and she ends up leaving to go to the bathroom, but when she comes out like 3 to 5 minutes later, she's just like, "Guys, help!" So like, I look at her, I'm like, what's wrong? And she's like, "Shh, I broke the toilet." I follow her to the bathroom. The toilet bowl is filled to the rim with water, and there's just 3 pieces of toilet paper just chilling on top. And I'm like, "What did you do?" She starts freaking out, and "The people before me didn't flush. I thought it was okay to flush, but it wasn't okay." So one of our other friends comes in, hears the story, and she's like, "Okay, hold on, I'm gonna go get the house owner." And my friend starts freaking out, being like, "No, don't tell him, he's gonna kill me." Our friend gets him anyway, and he comes in unbuttoning his shirt. He's just like, "Did someone call a plumber?" And then he sees the toilet, and he's just like, "What did you do?" So she tries to explain it to him, and he's like, "Okay, shut up." And then he fixes the toilet. But she was like still freaking out, like almost crying.
This is why you should never prank call strangers. So at the time I was 10 years old, I was having a sleepover with a couple of friends. We were all getting bored and couldn't find anything to do, so I came up with an idea to call random numbers and prank them. So we ended up calling a number, but we made sure we used the area code of the town we lived in. The first number we called, no one answered, but the second call, a man answered. We was kind of nervous, no one really knew what to say. So I just told him "I hate you" and hung up the phone. We all started laughing and decided not to prank call any more people that night. Our phones started to ring, and when I looked at my phone I noticed it was the same number that we pranked calling us back. And we all looked at each other and decided not to answer the phone. But the man kept calling. I started to get annoyed. So I answered the call and said, "Stop calling me, you loser." And then the call stopped. So we ended up watching movies later on and then falling asleep. The next morning I woke up to 20 text messages from the man saying he was going to kill me and that he knew where I lived. I was so scared. So every time I go outside I think someone is out to kill me.